The first time I saw Cheryl bend down to sneer in Ethan's face, I swear my stomach turned to stone. She looked him dead in the eyes, this man who had just come back from Iraq, paralyzed from the waist down, and said, "Maybe this neighborhood just isn't suitable for your needs anymore." I froze. I couldn't move, couldn't speak, just stared while Lauren, his wife, tried to hold back tears. Ethan sat there in his wheelchair, hospital band still clinging to his wrist, his face pale with exhaustion. He'd been home less than an hour. Less than an hour before the nightmare started. Ethan Davis had been gone for 4 months, deployed overseas. None of us even knew the details at first. One day Lauren just stopped coming outside, and their kids played quietly in the backyard while she paced the porch with a phone pressed to her ear. Then, finally, the news trickled in: Ethan had been hit by an IED. The doctors managed to keep him alive, but his spine was shattered. When Lauren said the word paralyzed, I thought she was exaggerating. But when I saw him roll down their driveway in that chair, reality hit like a hammer. The contractor's truck was already parked outside, lumber piled up, ready to build a temporary ramp. A ramp. That's all. Just a strip of wood so Ethan could get into his own damn house. But Cheryl popped out of nowhere, like she'd been waiting. Clipboard in hand, lips already twisted into that smug HOA president smile. Absolutely not. This violates Section 3.2. All exterior modifications require 30 days' notice and board approval. Lauren's voice cracked as she begged. Cheryl, he literally cannot get inside. But Cheryl just looked at Ethan, tilted her head like she was inspecting a child who'd spilled something on the carpet. And then she said it, the line that would burn into my memory forever. Well, that's what apartments are for. I thought that would be the lowest point. I thought once neighbors saw what she was doing, she'd back off. But Cheryl wasn't just cruel, she was calculated. The contractor tried reasoning. It's temporary. I'll match the color. Cheryl cut him off with a single question: are you licensed and bonded through our vendor list? When he admitted he wasn't, she smiled like she'd just won a game. Then you're trespassing. I'm calling the police. Ethan wheeled forward, desperation dripping from his voice. Cheryl, please. I just got home. I haven't seen my kids in 2 weeks. And then, God, I still feel sick remembering this, she actually bent down to his level. Bent down so she could look him dead in the face and say, "Funny, I saw you walking fine at the Memorial Day barbecue. Now suddenly you need special accommodations?" She was accusing a paralyzed veteran of faking his injury. Lauren pulled out hospital records, pages of medical proof. Cheryl waved them away. Anyone can forge documents. The air felt like it had been sucked out of the street. Ethan tried to wheel himself toward the steps. Fine. I'll do it myself. Wheelchairs aren't made for stairs. He lost his grip on the second step. I lunged forward, but I was too late. The crash was deafening, metal and flesh against concrete. Lauren screamed. Ethan writhed, clutching his back. And Cheryl? She pulled out her phone and started recording. See that? He moved his legs. I knew he was faking. But he hadn't moved. It was just his body convulsing from the pain. Mark from next door came running, phone in hand. I'm calling 911. Cheryl marched up beside him, shouting so loud the dispatcher could hear, "This is a false alarm. This man is an actor. I'm Cheryl Thompson, HOA president of Maplewood Ridge, and this is fraud." I'll never forget Mark's face in that moment. Pure disbelief. Are you insane? He snapped. Neighbors started to gather. Angela, the nurse down the street, dropped to her knees beside Ethan, checking his vitals. Cheryl whirled on her. Don't you have an expired registration sticker? I'll report you. It was like we weren't watching a man bleed on the concrete. We were watching Cheryl fight for control, as if his pain was just an inconvenience to her rulebook. And then, the silence broke. 9-year-old Tyler, this sweet kid who used to play catch with Ethan, stepped forward. His little voice cracked as he asked, "Why won't you let Mr. Ethan go home? He protected our country." Cheryl didn't even flinch. She pointed her clipboard at him and said, "Allegedly." That was the moment the crowd shifted. Angela pulled out her phone and went live on Facebook. Mark shouted the address to 911 again. And for the first time, Cheryl's mask slipped. I thought things couldn't get darker than that. But I was wrong. Because that was only the beginning. By the time the ambulance finally pulled up, half the neighborhood was watching. Ethan was pale, sweat dripping down his forehead, while Cheryl kept circling him with her phone like she was filming a reality show. "Everyone see that?" "He's faking," she repeated. "This is all for attention." But when the EMTs checked his vitals, their faces went serious. One of them radioed in for backup. That's when Cheryl's confident smile started to crack. Angela's Facebook Live was still running, and I could see the comments blowing up on her screen as she knelt beside Ethan. "Disgraceful. That woman should be arrested. He's a veteran, for God's sake." Within an hour, the video had been shared over 10,000 times. By midnight, it was over 80,000. And Cheryl knew it. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept refreshing my phone every 5 minutes, watching the share count climb. By 2 a.m., my doorbell camera pinged. Someone was walking slowly past my house, pausing to take pictures of my driveway and mailbox. Hood up, face hidden. The way they moved made my skin crawl. I knew exactly who it was. 3 days later, Lauren texted me from the hospital. Ethan's surgery had gone okay, but the insurance company was refusing to pay for the specialized wheelchair he needed. Their excuse? The fall was preventable. When she sent me the paperwork, my jaw dropped. Attached was an incident report filed by none other than Cheryl Thompson. She'd signed her name on the bottom, claiming Ethan had been reckless and had caused his own injuries. I felt sick. It wasn't enough that she humiliated him in front of the whole street, now she was trying to rob him of the equipment he literally needed to survive. That evening, I went over to Angela's house. She already had papers spread across her kitchen table. "These are letters," she whispered, handing me a stack. "Cheryl's been sending them to every doctor's office in town for months. Dr. Miller at the clinic finally gave me copies." My hand shook as I read letters accusing Ethan of being a drug seeker, claiming he was faking paralysis to get narcotics. There were 12 more about other neighbors too, accusing them of fraud, abuse, even crimes. Mark's son, Jake, pulled up something even darker. Using his laptop, he'd tracked down Cheryl's secret Nextdoor account. Username, Concerned Resident 2019. Over 200 anonymous posts in 2 years, accusing neighbors of being illegal immigrants, child predators, drug dealers. All lies. All targeted. We weren't just dealing with an unpleasant neighbor. Cheryl was running a full-blown smear campaign. The next morning, I met with Rachel Morris, a disability rights lawyer who'd seen Angela's video online. She wanted to help for free. "Viral videos are good," Rachel said, flipping through the evidence while sipping her coffee. "But to nail her legally? We need a pattern of discrimination. This isn't just one veteran, this is systemic harassment." It was the first time I realized Cheryl wasn't just cruel, she was strategic. She had been building this empire of control for years, and Ethan was just her newest victim. More neighbors came forward with footage. Doorbell cameras showing Cheryl measuring their grass with a ruler at 5 a.m. One woman showed violation letters, each one arriving right after she'd put up a Biden sign in her yard. Cheryl had measured her lawn 8 times that month. It was becoming clear she only targeted the people she didn't like. The undesirables, as she put it. 2 days later, Mark called me in a panic. Cheryl's husband, Brian, had shown up with 2 sheriff's deputies, accusing Mark of harassing Cheryl. The deputies looked uneasy as Mark showed them the evidence folder. One leaned in and whispered, "You'd better get a lawyer. This is going to get messy." And messy didn't even begin to cover it. Meanwhile, Ethan's GoFundMe had exploded to $40,000 in just 3 days. Donations poured in from veterans groups across the country. People left comments about their own HOA horror stories, promising to fight back. But Cheryl struck again. She filed a complaint with GoFundMe claiming the fundraiser was fraudulent. Within hours, the account was frozen. Lauren called me, sobbing. That money was supposed to pay for Ethan's therapy and medical equipment. I remember gripping my phone so hard my knuckles turned white. Cheryl wasn't going to stop at humiliation or paperwork. She was going to destroy them financially, emotionally, however she could. Then came the call that changed everything. It was midnight when my phone buzzed. Janet, one of the HOA board members, was whispering like she thought someone was listening. "I've been going through the HOA financial records," she said, voice trembling. "Cheryl's been stealing over $30,000. Funneled through a landscaping company that doesn't even exist. It's in Brian's brother's name." I sat up in bed, my heart pounding. Janet paused, her voice breaking. "I have copies of everything. But I don't feel safe keeping them here." That was the moment I realized Cheryl wasn't just a bully. She was running Maplewood Ridge like a criminal empire. And if we didn't move carefully, we'd all be next on her list. I thought the viral video would be the end of Cheryl. But it wasn't. It was just the opening shot. Because she still had plenty of weapons left to use against us. When Janet handed me that flash drive, I swear it felt heavier than it should have. Like it carried the weight of everyone Cheryl had ever hurt. We drove to a 24-hour print shop downtown, both of us checking the mirrors the whole way, like Cheryl might suddenly pull up behind us. While the copies printed, Janet leaned in close. "She's got dirt on everyone," she whispered. "Affairs, bankruptcies, even immigration issues. That's how she's kept control this long. Everyone's too scared to vote against her." I could feel my pulse in my ears. Because I knew exactly what it felt like to be trapped by someone else's secrets. When I was 14, I had a neighbor named Mr. Keller who ran our old HOA back in Kansas City. He caught my dad building a shed without a permit and threatened to fine us $100 a day until it was torn down. I'll never forget the night my dad smashed that shed apart with a sledgehammer while my mom cried on the porch. And Keller? He just stood there with his arms crossed, smiling. I learned that day what it felt like to watch someone with power enjoy your suffering. And when I saw Cheryl smirk while Ethan lay bleeding on the concrete, it was the exact same look. That memory burned in my chest as Janet slid the freshly printed records across the table. "She's been doing this for years," Janet whispered. The next morning, Rachel filed an ADA complaint with the Department of Justice. Meanwhile, Angela set up a neighborhood schedule, people signing up to bring meals, watch Lauren's kids, help however they could. It felt like we were fighting back, piece by piece. But Cheryl didn't just sit there and take it. 2 weeks after Ethan's fall, code enforcement trucks rolled into Maplewood Ridge. They came with clipboards and violation lists so long it looked like a script. Mark got cited for his basketball hoop being 6 inches too close to the sidewalk. Angela's garden shed, which had been there 15 years, suddenly violated setback rules. My own mailbox? Wrong shade of black. When we asked who filed the complaints, the inspector's face turned red. "Came straight from the county supervisor's office," he muttered. And Brian's signature was right there at the bottom. That night, Angela knocked on my door, her hand shaking. "Look at this," she said, shoving her phone toward me. It was screenshots from Cheryl's old LinkedIn account, and comments from people in Texas and Nevada. "She's done this before," Angela said, her voice low. 3 different HOAs. Every time, she was accused of harassment and missing money. And every time, the lawsuits got sealed. It hit me like a punch. Cheryl wasn't some suburban tyrant drunk on power. She was a professional predator. This was her pattern. She moved from neighborhood to neighborhood, milking them dry until she got forced out, then starting fresh somewhere else. And now she'd chosen Maplewood Ridge. By then, Ethan's story had spread beyond Colorado. Local news stations picked it up after Angela's live stream hit 500,000 views. Reporters showed up outside Lauren's house. I'll never forget the interview from his hospital bed. Ethan sat there in his chair, his voice soft but steady. I didn't ask for special treatment. I just wanted to go home. Within hours, Cheryl's lawyer blasted cease and desist letters to every station. But the footage was already out there. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker across Cheryl's face. But if we thought the exposure would stop her, we were dead wrong. That's when the intimidation started. One night around 3 a.m., my phone buzzed with a motion alert. The doorbell showed someone crouching at the edge of my lawn, snapping photos. Same hooded figure as before, same slow movements. Another neighbor reported car alarms going off every night at 3:07 a.m. exactly 3:07. Like someone was timing it. And Angela found footprints in the mulch by her window, size 7 women's sneakers, same brand Cheryl always wore. We started to realize this wasn't just about Ethan anymore. This was war. And Cheryl wasn't going to fight fair. 3 weeks after Ethan's fall, everything in Maplewood Ridge felt poisoned. The HOA meetings weren't about lawn care anymore, they were war zones. Cheryl would stand at the front, voice trembling as she read from prepared statements about outside agitators destroying community values. Then she'd slam down violation letters like weapons. When neighbors tried to record her, her voice would go shrill, almost panicked, "You can't film me without permission. That's illegal." But no one cared anymore. The cameras kept rolling. That's when the real retaliation started. Mark's homeowner's insurance was suddenly cancelled after Cheryl reported his grandson's skateboard ramp as a safety hazard. Angela got a formal complaint at her nursing job, accusing her of practicing medicine without authorization because she had checked Ethan's vitals on the driveway. Lauren's credit card stopped working. The bank flagged suspicious activity, but when she called, the representative admitted someone had been filing false fraud claims in her name. I'll never forget the day I saw her sitting in her car outside CVS, tears streaking down her face. She couldn't afford Ethan's nerve pain medication. She finally called her mother, sobbing, humiliated, begging for help. And Cheryl? She was spotted at the grocery store that same afternoon, cart blocking the wheelchair lane, chatting like nothing was wrong. Then came the night none of us will ever forget. I woke up to Lauren's screams. I ran outside, heart pounding, and froze. Their orange tabby cat lay stiff on the front step. Its neck broken. A note taped to its collar read, "Fake heroes don't deserve real pets." Lauren collapsed on the porch, shaking. Ethan wheeled himself out, his face blank, just staring at the body. Their 8-year-old son vomited in the yard. Their 6-year-old daughter stood frozen, whispering, "Is Mr. Whiskers asleep?" The police came, but without cameras or witnesses, there was nothing they could do. Just another unfortunate accident. But we knew. We all knew. That same week, Ethan's GoFundMe froze. Cheryl had filed a complaint claiming the entire fundraiser was a scam. $40,000, gone overnight. Lauren called me, voice breaking. That money was for his therapy. For the wheelchair. I wanted to scream. Instead, I drove to Angela's, and we sat there in her kitchen, surrounded by stacks of papers and screenshots. We weren't neighbors anymore. We were detectives, survivors, soldiers in a war we hadn't signed up for. But Cheryl wasn't working alone. Jake, Mark's son, dug deeper into the so-called landscaping company the HOA kept paying. Turns out, it didn't exist. No employees. No equipment. Registered in Delaware under Brian's brother's name, 2 months after Cheryl became president. Over $200,000 had vanished into that shell. And suddenly, it all clicked. Cheryl didn't just thrive on cruelty. She profited from it. Every fine, every violation, every fake project, it was all part of a bigger scheme. The intimidation ramped up. Car alarms blared in the middle of the night. Delivery drivers refused to drop packages at Ethan's house after anonymous complaints claimed the family was hostile. One driver showed Mark the UPS system note, "Unsafe residents. Do not approach." And then Cheryl took it even further. She started showing up at Ethan's physical therapy sessions. Standing outside the glass windows with her phone, recording every movement. Posting online, "See? He's walking just fine. Fraud exposed." The therapist called security 3 times. But Cheryl always came back. Always just close enough to terrify them, but not close enough to get arrested. That's when I realized something bone deep and terrifying. This wasn't about rules anymore. It wasn't even about money. Cheryl had crossed into obsession. She wanted Ethan destroyed. She wanted all of us broken. And late one night, as I stared at those forged letters and fake reports spread across my kitchen table, I caught myself whispering out loud. What if she doesn't stop at harassment? What if she wants one of us dead? Because in my gut, I knew. That's where this was heading. It had been 6 months since the night Ethan tried to crawl up those steps. 6 months of threats, forged reports, dead pets, frozen bank accounts. By then, Cheryl wasn't just the HOA president. She was our stalker. Our tormentor. Our monster. And then, she finally snapped. One morning, I woke up to sirens. Smoke was pouring from Ethan's yard. Cheryl had set fire to the wooden ramp the contractor had managed to build. She stood in the street, live streaming herself, laughing as the flames ate away the only thing that gave Ethan independence. Protecting property values, she screamed into her phone. "We don't want parasites in Maplewood Ridge." Ethan sat at his window, trapped, watching the ramp burn. When the cops rolled up, Cheryl kept broadcasting, "The government is silencing me. The veterans are using mind control to frame me." She was still ranting when they cuffed her. The live stream didn't stop until her phone hit the pavement. That arrest should have been the end. But it wasn't. Days later, black SUVs flooded Maplewood Ridge. The FBI. They'd been investigating the shell landscaping company Janet exposed. Turned out Brian had been using his government job to run background checks on neighbors, feeding Cheryl the dirt she used to blackmail people. When agents popped the trunk of his car, they found boxes of stolen files, credit reports, surveillance photos, even kids' schedules. Brian was dragged out in handcuffs. Cheryl stood on the lawn screaming, "He acted alone. I knew nothing." But her lies were unraveling faster than she could spin them. The evidence poured in. Storage units full of notebooks and photos Cheryl had kept for 7 years. Secret audio recordings of her bragging about destroying families. Her own daughter, Ashley, turning over hours of tapes she'd hidden for years, Cheryl laughing about making single moms cry, planning ways to force minorities out of her neighborhood. It was worse than any of us imagined. And then came the most chilling discovery of all, a notebook Cheryl called the termination list. At the very top was Ethan's name. Detailed notes about how to stage accidents, block ambulances, even make death look like complications from paralysis. When that was shown in court, the room went silent. The trial lasted weeks, but the jury only needed 3 hours. Guilty. On every count. Racketeering. Fraud. Civil rights violations. Arson. When the judge read out 18 years in federal prison, Cheryl screamed about conspiracies, about being a patriot, about the Supreme Court saving her. She had to be carried out of the courtroom in cuffs, still shrieking. And just like that, the nightmare was over. 2 months later, Maplewood Ridge held its first HOA meeting without her. Mark was elected president. He tore up Cheryl's 200-page rulebook and replaced it with 10 simple guidelines. No more measuring grass with rulers. No more fines for the wrong shade of mailbox. We weren't a battlefield anymore. We were a community again. And then Ethan wheeled himself up to the microphone. His hands trembled. His voice cracked. "I just wanted to come home." That was all he said. but the whole room stood up. Clapping. Crying. For 5 straight minutes, nobody sat down. A few months later, the settlement checks started arriving. Between Cheryl's personal assets, the HOA's insurance, and Brian's civil judgment, Ethan and Lauren received $1.8 million. Enough for his medical care, their kids' future, and permanent modifications to their home. The neighborhood showed up one Saturday to build him a proper concrete ramp. Every single house contributed something: tools, paint, food for the workers. We didn't wait for permits. We didn't ask for board approval. We just built it. Together. When it was done, kids covered it in chalk drawings: "Mr. Ethan is our hero. Best neighbor ever." For the first time in months, I saw Ethan smile. And now, when I walk past their house in the evenings, I see him in the driveway, teaching his son how to throw a football from his chair. His daughter sits on the porch next to Lauren, both of them laughing at his play calls. The ramp is covered in vines now, decorated with flowers Lauren planted. It's not just a ramp anymore. It's a monument. Because no matter what Cheryl tried to take from him, from us, Ethan came home. And Cheryl? She's exactly where she belongs. Behind bars.